Stepping in the spotlight, you know that it feels right. Time to put up a fight, honey. Got nothing left to lose, so let's start right now. Everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. You're so funny, yeah, so iconic. If you didn't know before, now you know. Now you know. Take a big step away from who you were. Flashing that smile and the whole world's a blur. Dancing in the limelight, oh you're on in the night. Looking fresh, looking tight, honey. Yeah, you got 'em hanging on your every word right now. Everybody want a piece of you.
Positively powerful, and it is Wednesday, and it is the 1st of October. We are in a new month, new goals, new, what do you say, Stacey? New goals, new, what else?
Day, I don't know.
New month,
new moment,
yeah,
new opportunities,
new opportunities,
new possibilities.
Yeah.
All
New open doors and whatnot. Scott Fitzgerald here with Stacey Steinmiller for the Positively Powerful live stream on whatever platform you happen to be watching. And today we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart. Imposter syndrome. And that is actually something that, if you've been paying attention to the world, a lot of people have been talking about this over the last couple of years, more so than in the past, I believe. I think it's become a subject that's been kind of put on the forefront of a lot of trainers and coaches and motivational speakers have been talking about this, because I think it affects a lot of people. And yours truly is definitely on that list. So why don't you tell us, what is imposter syndrome?
Awesome. Can I read it off Google? Am I allowed to do that?
No rules.
No rules. Okay. So according to AI, it's a psychological experience where individuals doubt their accomplishments and achievements, leading to a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud, despite external evidence of their competence. So, yeah, so this is where you're doing well, you have external evidence that you're doing well, you're accomplishing what you, quote, need to, but then maybe somebody asks you like, oh, can you speak on this topic, right, that you are clearly well educated in, and your immediate response might be, what? Me? I don't know anything about that.
Who am I? Who am I to talk to people about that subject? Pshaw. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be an example that
nailed it
to describe it.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it either.
So growing up, like when I was in high school, I had a teacher who used to always say, fake your way to fame and fortune. And I know there's a lot of people that say that, fake your way through or whatever. And, there's you being playful about it. There's something to be said about, kind of jumping right in, even though maybe you're not really ready or you don't really know it all, but you're going to go for it anyway. But when it comes down to the fake your way to fame and fortune, for those of us with imposter syndrome, that's kind of like, oh, that's actually what I've been doing.
Yeah.
You got me. And so like for me, it's been one of those things where people have been saying for years, hey, you should do those, product review videos where you review cameras and you review microphones and I'm like, no. Like, I see the guys that do those videos and I'm like, that is not me. I can't. And part of it is because I'm like, I don't think I know enough. But the
Mhm.
other part is that I don't like putting myself out there as an expert, which flies in the face of what I'm doing
Right,
for my
exactly.
career. So I've been kind of forced in that way. But
Mhm.
it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. We're joking about it now, but it's something that really causes a lot of really deep anxiety for people when they're in their own field and they're
Yeah.
feeling inadequate and they're feeling like they don't belong there or they don't deserve where they're at. And
Yeah.
so that it goes deeper than just, on the surface the way we're talking about it now. What do you think is
Yeah.
the cause of that? What is it? Is like goes back pretty far, I would guess, into some sort of maybe a childhood thing where not you don't feel like you're good enough, or someone told you weren't good enough, or does it go back that far, you think?
There could be that. I also like to look at it through the lens of education and our focus on accomplishment, like grades, um, versus learning and what the learning process actually looks like, and getting comfortable with learning, getting comfortable with mistakes, getting comfortable with criticism. Instead, it's, oh, I have to do this thing and I have to do it perfectly so that I turn it in and I get an A and then I feel good and accomplished, versus navigating the messiness of learning. And so I think our entire culture is really set up on this polished outward version versus a true learning and growing experience, and what that actually is. So imposter syndrome is, I think, just kind of a byproduct of how we see education, accomplishment, expertise, um, because it's not rooted in learning and growing.
Hmm. When
Yeah.
I look back to my schooling, I think about how I could have done so much better had I really actually applied myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot of people who were, at least to me, they looked like they were effortless. 4.0 students, they got a near perfect on their SATs or something like that. And that's not me for sure. Just because, maybe it's not because I don't know the material, it's because I'm not really good at taking tests at
Mhm.
some in some way. My SAT scores were just terrible.
Yeah.
So bad. And that was a real letdown for me in the time when I was in school. I really wanted to go to one of the military academies, and I just didn't have the scores. I just didn't have the grades. And it's not that I wasn't smart enough. It's not that I didn't have that capability. It's just because for all that time, I just did the bare minimum. I did what I had to do and didn't push myself and
Right.
didn't try to, you know, challenge myself and do better. And it was just like, I mean, when I did, I really did well, but it was so few and far between that I just didn't,
Yeah.
so I mean, if we were going to go down the rabbit hole of regrets, that would
Yeah.
be the one that I would come up with, is that, going back to all the way back to my schooling, is I just never really applied myself. I just kind of got through the motions. And I don't know
Yeah.
why that is. I don't
It's
have an explanation for, it's like, maybe was it just inherent laziness? Was it,
it's
it's
uncomfortable. Again, it's because it's messy. Actual learning is really messy and it's really uncomfortable because it points you to your flaws. Yeah, I have a lot of regrets on how I engaged in my learning process. Luckily, somehow I was able to get really good grades, but I did it because I have a really good memory. And
ah,
yeah, so I just could remember everything, but the actual intricate learning and applied, like the application of it all, like some areas really got in, but a lot didn't, because it took work. to do that. It takes work to actually apply what you're learning. And that requires mistakes. It requires like, oh wait, that I did this and this is why this was wrong and this is what could make it better. So you have to face yourself and you have to feel the feelings that come up with that in order to truly learn. And again, since there's so much pressure on just the outcome, then you were like, well, I need that outcome. I can't be dealing with these mistakes and feelings that come from mistakes and criticism and feelings that come from criticism. Like, I don't have time for that. So I'm just going to memorize, get it right, and not actually digest and integrate what I'm learning. So yeah, and I think that's it, and it's a shame too, because I think by the time we learn this, we're adults, and I think it's why adult students get way more out of education than we do as kids, because we don't know all that yet.
Yeah. Matt says he was a C student without cracking a book. He wonders what he would have done if he applied himself. Yeah. And that's exactly how I feel. Is like I put little to no effort, and even with my little to no effort, I was like a high B student, but not in everything. I will admit that I do have that math deficit. I'm not a numbers guy. I never had a head for numbers. And just and probably my attitude didn't help that, because I always saw it as like, I can't do this, and so what do you know, I can't.
Right, identity issue. Yeah.
But also there's, and I can't remember the name of the book, but it's like multiple disciplines or something, where it talks about just the way our education system is in this country, and how it, there, with everyone going through the education system, they treat it like a one size fits all type of module. And it's not right, because there are so many people that learn differently, or they have different strengths. Someone who is really great in the arts and stuff like that, but maybe not great in the sciences, doesn't mean that they're a bad student. It just means that they have different specialties that resonate with their brain. And they can pick up, some people can pick up on facts and, recite different things and memorize, like you're saying, memory. But when it comes to figuring out some sort of an arithmetic problem, they're like, can't do it, so it's like everybody has their own different strengths and weaknesses. And I think if the education system was curtailed to see them, analyze where their strengths and weaknesses were, and then apply those in the learning process, you'd probably have better overall results. And there's a book out there, I think it's called like Multiple Disciplines or something like that talks about that. And it, talking about how many kids have different types of learning disabilities, or just learning abilities, really, not even a disability, but learning abilities. They're just different. They're various.
Yeah.
I was definitely not as competitive as some of the other kids growing up. I know that was like a big thing. You're like, trying to be top in the class and stuff like that. And it was like, I don't know. I feel like learning when you're a teenager is you're just set up for failure.
Yeah. Really.
It's like, you really want me to, like, I'm looking at girls. I'm not looking at my books. I mean, that's just the way it was. It was like, that was the fact. It was like, I wanted to do this and that, and I didn't want to learn. And it was like, man, can you, who designed this whole life thing? They did it all really backwards.
So backwards.
It's like,
when you're a teenager, socialization is the most important thing for you when you're a teenager, like biologically in your brain, like that's what you're focused on. And I was lucky that I was friends with a lot of good students and people that were interested in learning things. So I hung out with the nerds. So I really benefited from that.
Yeah.
Whereas, right. So that was also another plus. Like I had all these things that just happened to, I think, fall in and really serve me in a positive way as far as like grades go, and other things. I avoided a lot of other social issues because of that. But then it's like, well, what if I happen to be friends with a different group of people? What if I happen to grow up here instead of there, or this instead of
Oh yeah.
that? Like I could just see how my life could be so completely different just because of like who you're friends with and
I
who
mean, you
your
see that,
influences are.
you see countless stories of people like that where you know, someone who's, and this is an age old debate
Mhm.
about environment, you know, nurture
Mhm.
versus nature and that kind of thing. Like some people are inherently just have a better aptitude for learning things, but if they're in the wrong environment that's not challenging them, that's not utilizing those tools, they're not going to be successful. And some of those people can bring you down. I mean, I remember, you know, my parents saying, you shouldn't hang out with those kids, they're bad kids, you know, or I don't like that so and so because he's,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. And it's true.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
Yes.
it's true. They were right. It
It
was like,
is.
yeah, you know what? Thinking back, that guy was kind of a douche. He he
Right. Right.
he really liked to, like, you know, goof off and get in trouble, and you know, he wanted to go in back behind the shed and smoke cigarettes, and I'm like, no man, I want to play football.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But so
Yeah.
getting back to the
Imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome, you know, I guess the biggest question that I always have is like, what are the best ways to try to combat that within yourself? Because that's, for me, my I'm always my own biggest enemy, you know.
Right.
That self-sabotage kind of thing that happens all the time, and you know, I guess getting yourself into that auto suggestion of positive self-talk and concentrating on just a better mindset, I
Yeah.
guess is the key. And you know, working with you has helped me in that way because I've caught myself in those moments where I'm like, no, 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 hold on. You're thinking about this the wrong way, or you're seeing yourself in a bad way. And you know, what's the thing that you like to say? What's the story that you're telling yourself? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I think that's huge for people. Like, you might need to start changing that story, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head. Self-compassion is probably the main thing to work on, is like, how are you relating to yourself? Because if you're not being nice to yourself, if you're not being compassionate to yourself, if you're not being loving to yourself, then it doesn't matter how much praise you get from the outside, because you've built a wall and are able to find any excuse as to what they're saying is not true, because it doesn't match your internal story that or identity that you have crafted for yourself, right? So it's really working on that those inner stories, that inner dialogue, those inner beliefs, and shifting those, because there's no amount of accomplishment that will shift it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say would be like sort of the top your, and I'm just kind of throwing this out, your top
Yeah.
3 tools for battling your imposter syndrome from within, like the top 3 things that someone can do?
Um, so yeah, so I guess working on, I think identifying those stories, where they come from, and understanding they're a means of protection, and recognizing, because what you're really doing a lot is like keeping yourself small. When, right, if they're like, oh, can you speak on this, and you're like, well, I'm not qualified, um right, you're keeping yourself small, because there is a risk of failure there as well. So it's also learning how to deal with, like I was saying earlier, those messy feelings, and to deal with mistakes, to deal with failures, so that you can take more risks and handle more failures. I think a lot of people, you know, need to experience a lot of failures. And again, our society is not set up for how to deal with failures. So yeah, so self-compassion, how to meet yourself. Yeah, increasing your emotional intelligence or emotional capacity to deal with sucking at something. And right.
Yeah.
um and and maybe another thing is, also whatever you're really good at, that happens naturally for you. So there's also, I guess, another thing I wanted to touch on is, maybe because you are so skilled, you don't see it as like a good enough skill to like teach on, right? Because you're like, well, that's common sense, everybody knows that. But that's not true. So I
Mm.
think it's also recognizing that if something really comes easy for you and people are pointing out how good you are at something, and you're confused because, again, culture has said like you need to work so hard, right? Like it needs to feel hard in order for it to
Right.
be
And if it comes
successful.
naturally to you and you're not
You're
busting your ass to do it, it feels wrong, like it feels wrong, like I'm doing something
right.
wrong.
So yeah, so it's kind of recognizing, so kind of just trusting, like, oh, I must have a gift here. And so I'm going to trust that if they want me to speak on this, and even though I think it's easy, and I don't, and I think everybody knows that if they're asking for that, like, trust that and give it to them, because then it's not about you. If you really want to serve and show up in your gifts, then give people what they're asking for, and get over yourself. Right?
Get over
Like, it's
yourself.
not all about
Uh,
you. Which is
I
hard. This is why it's such a mindset and
yeah,
emotional thing,
yeah.
right?
And I think, everybody, different people deal with things in different ways and have different tools. So, one of the, I think the best ways is to get some kind of a coach like yourself, who can help you to recognize those when you're telling yourself those stories, because for a lot of us, we're so used to that inner monologue that we don't recognize it's happening anymore.
Yeah.
And so when you start to recognize it again, then you can go, oh, well, I'm recognizing this. Now I can actually take steps to change it. So getting a coach, for me, audiobooks and podcasts are really a great tool for listening to what, one, because when I read anything, I fall asleep. So I have to do audiobooks now. It's just the way it is. But there's been so many that have touched on, there's some that are all about imposter syndrome, and then there's some that touch on it. And those different authors have really great ways of telling you how to kind of sidestep those feelings and change them and make them better, to like change that whole way that you look at things. And maybe, getting together with people who have the same feeling and talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's an imposter syndrome support group. But if there isn't, there maybe should be, because
Right.
I've found that one of the best ways to improve yourself on any given topic is to surround yourself with people who are struggling with the same thing, because you hear other ways that people deal with it, and you're like, oh wow, I never thought of it that way, and that might be good for me. And so it kind of opens up your horizons to how you can deal with things.
Yeah. You feel less alone, and that can help combat the shame. So yeah, it really requires moving through shame, and recognizing where your shame is being selfish. I hesitate on saying this because people are gonna be like, "How could you say that?"
Shame is selfish.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're making it all about you. You're in your own story, you're in your own thing, and you're like, you know. So, yeah, but people don't like to hear that because obviously they're in an emotional pain and suffering. But once you're able to really step out and see that, then you're like, oh, wow, that really is selfish. Like, I look back on my hardest, most emotionally painful times and I see how much pain I was causing other people because I was deciding to stay stuck in my own pain. So moving beyond these things is not yeah, so moving beyond and into your gifts, into your greatness, into your next level, that's people say that that's selfish. No, that's the biggest service you could ever do, because when you do that, you are no longer going to be putting your burdens on other people, right? And you'll also be paving a way for them to step into their light and their service as well. And this is how I believe we move society forward.
Yeah, that's
So,
interesting. I didn't think about that, but if you do change that inner story and like kind of flip the script and say, this is how I'm going to serve people by owning what I'm good at,
yep.
and that could inspire someone else who's maybe not at the same level of you as you, who is coming up, who sees you as a mentor, and you know, you can inspire them to go after the same things that you're doing. And I love the people that go out and specifically do what they do simply to inspire. Just
Mm-hmm.
the selfless act of wanting to
Yes.
encourage other people to find their strengths and explore them. That's like, I don't know, those are the best people. Those are
Yeah.
simply the best people. And there's not enough of them, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I
You know?
agree. Because it takes all that inner work that you have to do yourself, right? So this is why it's like leaders, this is your focus, right? Like is actually working on yourself so that you can lead, and then you'll lead naturally and effortlessly because it's about who you are versus just like teaching on a topic. It's not about what you know, it's about who you are, and you inspire people to grow and they develop, right? And then now they're going to become a great asset as well. But yeah, it all starts with having to work through all our stuff in here, and we keep trying to bypass that,
Yeah.
and you'll keep hitting a brick wall until you go in and feel all the uncomfortable things you're gonna feel.
And one of my clients, Dr. John Stallworth, wrote a book called The Serving Leader, and he's
Mm,
actually the founder of the Center for Serving Leadership. They're out of Pittsburgh, and they have an office in Rochester too. And their whole focus is about serving leadership. Is leadership
yeah.
from a serving point of view, where you are doing this stuff selflessly to help others. And I've always felt about leadership when you're talking about lead by respect and example, lead
Hmm.
by the characteristics that you, I mean, good character, think putting others first, all these things that I personally am not seeing as much in
In society.
in society, in the traditional
Hmm.
leaders that we as a society have looked to
Hmm.
for whatever kind of guidance it is. You know, you think about back in the days, like FDR. You know, FDR was
Yeah.
for there was that leadership quality, or like Churchill, or like, these big names that, they all had their own, good and bad things about them. But when it came down to inspiring a whole society and the leadership
Mhm.
that they offered, it was just like, so when you look back into that history, it's so inspiring, and you
Yeah.
go, where is that right now? I want to see that. I want to see
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a different That's an entirely different
topic.
live stream. Well,
Yeah.
I always enjoy talking to you about this kind of stuff because I always feel and talking about being selfish. Literally, if nobody watched these live streams, I would be fine
Still.
because I get something out of them. I get to
Exactly.
talk to you about this stuff, and it always helps me like throughout my day, and the rest of my week is always so much better. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you, and people can find you on your website, radicallifecoach.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It hasn't changed since last week.
Hasn't changed since last week or the week before, the week before that, or since 2021 when I think I bought the domain for that one.
And we've got rockvox.com for podcasting. A lot of people doing more remote podcasting, and now we have a lot of cool tools to make it easy and successful. So hit us up at rockvox.com. We can help out for that. And we will see you next time on this live stream, Positively Powerful.